So Gary Gomes had such a history. One of the highest risk assessment factors is strangulation or attempted strangulation. And he was arrested in 2004, I believe, for strangling his sister after she accused him of stealing something from her. He had, I think, he had just gotten out of jail, I think 6 months before he killed his ex-girlfriend and his mom. And he went into jail because he had, again, strangled his ex-girlfriend, held a knife to her throat, and said, "You're never going to leave me." And so the highest risk factors are threats with a weapon, strangulation, forced sex, and threats to kill. And so he exhibited so many of the scariest of the scary risk factors. So it's no surprise as you kind of read forensically what happened in that case, it's almost, you know, our belief is that domestic violence homicides are preventable because you can predict them. You know who the intended target is, you know what the really risky behavior is.
But what did he do the entire time? He waxed floors. That's all he did. Stripped and waxed the same floor, probably every week. So you can imagine, this guy's got so many issues, and all he's being allowed to do is wax floors. So the quality of his time, what did he solve? Absolutely nothing. The issue of, what were you doing in the woods choking your girlfriend, never got brought up. So with Gary Gomes, he didn't do anything to address the issues that brought him there. And that's what's happening systematically to everyone. The cops arrested him, the court sentenced him, and the jail is supposed to rehabilitate him. So who knew, who's going to take the blame for Gary Gomes killing these people? They're going to blame the judge, because judges are barred from discussing anything to the media. Judges are not allowed to talk.
It's probably a combination of liberal judges and the system itself. I mean, we do have a lot of liberal judges in this state, but if you see some of the rulings on some of these cases, it makes you wonder how some of these judges became judges. I mean, I look at it and I just, you know.
They shut down the library, they shut down AA, they shut down anger management, which are all free programs. So right there, that gives you an idea of what happened to Gary Gomes. Nothing happened to him. That's the problem. That is the problem. Solution. The solution to the problem is the laws.
District Attorney John Blodget, this is a bill that basically gives the district attorney the discretion to move a domestic violence case from a misdemeanor to a felony, and it's true targeted serial batterers. And when you're working with a DA who really understands risk assessment, that's a thing of beauty, actually. But if we know that strangulation or a threat to kill or one of those real high risk factors is involved, then the DA can immediately decide, I'm not going to try this as a misdemeanor, this is going to be a felony, because we know the longer he stays away from her, the safer she's going to be.
And I think that the state on multiple levels plays a role. You know, as the funder of programs, as a place to you know, create and enforce policy that's going to be most helpful for those affected. And then I think the substance of that policy is something that we have to hold the state accountable for.
There's no behavior change. The only thing you've done is ensured that this woman, the original woman that we helped, is safe. So now he's moved on to someone else. So what has to happen inside prison or inside jail to change their beliefs and the way that they are in the world? That's what's not addressed, ever.
What was going on? Instead, they pat themselves on the back and say, we did a good job. Make new laws, congratulate the law enforcement, and leave the main issue out of it. It is all of their fault. But because the police are separate, the courts are separate, and the jails are separate, the jail is going to blame the judge is going to blame the cops, the cops are going to blame the judge, and the cops are going to blame the jail.
What needs to happen is that we need to break down the silos, right? We have to break down the silos and start talking to one another and sharing that information, because people don't live in silos, right? And if our systems kind of look at us as these, it's like, okay, I'm dealing with this person over here, and then the system over here is dealing with this person over here. That's not the reality of their life. Right? There's a lot of connection. And so similarly, we need to make sure that those systems are talking to one another. That's going to mean changing some of our practice and protocol.
We all have such different cultures. We all have different beliefs about domestic violence. We all have different experiences. The police are frustrated because they're going out to the same house every Friday night. They're scared, whether or not they admit it, but they're scared because domestic violence calls are the worst and the most volatile for police officers. So they get a chip on their shoulder. They're mad. Hey, I pulled her out of the house 5 times and she keeps going back. And so they have very limited, at the time, had a very limited understanding about domestic violence. The court, sometimes the court listens to domestic violence advocates, sometimes it doesn't. So where we started was training to really appeal to the whole community and say, we want to start a multidisciplinary team. We're going to be looking at the worst cases of domestic violence and together figuring out how do we create an individualized intervention.
What the solution and how it's going to come about is the colleges, young people, average Joes like me and you, inmates, ex-cons. It's not up to the government anymore.
Because when we started the high-risk team, it was only because we stopped for a minute, we took a step back and said, okay, so if we don't figure out a different way to handle high-risk cases, then the next Dorothy Cotter, which is the name of our client who was murdered, the next Dorothy Cotter that comes through our doors, we have nothing different to offer her. Nothing. I think if the government, if everyone could just take a step back and look at what's the end result? What do we want it to be? And so we're here earlier in the system, can we make some changes so we're more guaranteed to get closer to this?
The jail industry is so much money.
For the jails in Massachusetts right now there are 14 jails. They cost about $500 million a year to run, and the prisons the same thing, about $500 million. So it's little bit more than $1 billion in Massachusetts, for a total of about 25,000 people in jails and prisons, like half and half. But most of that money doesn't go to services. Only 3% of the money goes to programs. The rest just is for salaries and sort of the machinery of prisons and jails. The reason that they cost so much here is because of the power of the labor unions of the guards and how much the guards get paid. In Massachusetts, the average pay, starting pay for a guard could be $80,000 a year.
You're not gonna bite the hand that feeds you. That's why they do it. That's why they allow it to go on. Should I bring this issue up or risk my mortgage? It's very sad. Elected officials are not seeing what the common folks are seeing, because they go home like we all do and we forget what's outside. We enjoy our lifestyle, and that's important to each one of us, that we enjoy our lifestyle, but some people don't really see what their actions are doing to other people. They're destroying lives.